Hello everyone, this is Samiri, and this is part 2 of how to build the ultimate remote control device that is called the box. In part 1 we managed to build the box and test the control systems we put in, and now I'm going to actually show you how I move around a townsperson using this. Some of it I'm going to fire through pretty quickly because I do have some tutorials already on advanced triggering actors where I explain why this is all working. And so this one is basically just going to be hooking it all together to make it work. Now some of it seems a little odd, and we will get to that stuff in a bit. This is going to be our main loop. I'm going to be controlling a lot of different things, and I need trigger and actor information for all of it, and I don't want to do separate loops for every single piece. So I'm going to use one main loop, and all it is doing is passing the information through the middle logic gate, to the last logic gate here. And the reason I'm doing that is to slow down my circuit. If I just used the 2, my loop would actually be going too fast for some of the circuitry I'm going to be building. So instead I'm looping it through a third logic gate just to slow it down just enough so that the logic will all work happily. So the last logic gate is actually inputting back to the first one, and this creates a loop so that when I get the trigger and actor information, I can capture it and just loop it continuously so it always has that trigger and actor information. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put down my weather vanes that I'm going to want. Just going to steal from there. And so I'm going to want one going up, one going right, one going down, and one going left. And below each of them, I'm going to have 2 logic gates. And the reason I'm about to do it this way is because I found that the analog controls and using the trigger areas, I am actually getting a much quicker response than I would from the normal remote controller. So there are times where I need, all these things are going to be shutting on and off really fast. And when you're going diagonally, so you're affecting 2 circuits at the same time, it's incredibly handy to just have a separate circuit for each of them, so that when you exit both of those trigger areas at the same time, each circuit can properly shut itself off. If it's all running off one big logic chain, it's not going to work properly, and only one of the weather vanes will turn off, and your character will just keep wandering off in a direction until you manage to somehow get control of it. So this way I've found actually maintains good control over the entire system. So what we're going to do is we're going to say the output of this final logic gate in our loop is actually going to send an input to the top logic gate of every weather vane here. And all of these 4 circuits are going to be hooked up the exact same way. So I'll probably do 2 of them to demonstrate, and then the other 2 I'll speed through. They're mini logic chains, so the output is going to be hooked up to nothing, so that if nothing's happening and they receive the input from this loop up here, they just dump it with the output, nothing happens. So 90% of it, or 99% of the time, these will all be doing nothing. The only time we care is when we start closing these logic gates. So the input block to the top gate will go to the input of the second gate. Now, what we need to ensure is if the top gate opens, it opens the bottom gate. And we need to do it the opposite way so that if the bottom gate closes, it then closes the top gate. You can see some of my other videos on exactly why we're doing this way. Trust me, it's very important for the control. Now, what we want to say is, if I get an output from the bottom gate, I want to open the top gate, and an input block also opens the top gate. So whether it's an output or an input block, this top gate then has to open right away. What else do we need to do? We need to say an output is going to turn this weather vane on, and an input block is going to turn it off. Now I'm going to show you how we're going to hook the trigger area for this first one as well, just so we understand why we just did all this. So this first trigger area, the one that points up, we want the character to move north or up in this situation. So if our player enters this trigger area, we want to close the top logic gate. And what will happen then is the loop will send the input. Instead of being dumped out of output, because this gate is closed, it'll go down input blocked, but this gate is still open, so it'll go at output, which turns this weather vane on. And now, if the player exits this trigger area, we're going to close the bottom gate. And what that does is when this gate closes, it closes the top gate, so that when the loop comes in and sends our signal, this gate is closed, goes out input block to this gate, and this gate is closed, so it goes out the input block of this gate, which turns off this weather vane. And you'll also see that both the output and the input block of the bottom gate here is always reopening this gate, so the next time that loop sends us a signal, this logic gate on the top is already open, and it just keeps dumping it again. It doesn't need that signal anymore, so it just dumps it. And of course, the weather vane right here, we're going to set it to 8 for now, and it is going to be triggering actor as well. But because we're capturing triggering actor information of our townsperson in this loop, and this loop is feeding all of these logic chains down here, the triggering actor information that will be sent to this weather vane is of our townsperson. And so that's why we're capturing and keeping that information. Like I said again, I've got a video all about it. If you really want to know more about it, go see that video. It'll explain it all. But now I'm going to do the same thing to the next gate here. And we're going to say, if it opens, open this gate. If the bottom one closes, close the top one. Of course, we have to hook up the input block to the input of this one. And we have to say, if there's an output, we open this gate. And if there's an input blocked, we open this gate. The output will turn on that weather vane, and the input blocked will turn it off. And now we have to look at our right trigger area. Any player enters, close the top one. Any player exits, close the bottom one. And lastly, set this up to 8 and triggering actor. Now we're probably going to speed through these ones. Alright, so now we have the controls hooked up for moving the townsperson or whatever object we throw through a trigger, moving it around using the analog stick. So we're actually going to drop down a piece of terrain real quick to move around on. Give ourselves a fair bit of room to play around with here. And we just need a couple more things. We're going to need a trigger area would be helpful. And I always like to make sure it's something that the townsperson can't wander back through at some point. So I'm just going to put it right there for now. And here's a little trick I use for putting the townsperson through the trigger area. Is I'll drop a replayer down. And I'm going to use the replayer to put a block right above that trigger area. Just your standard block. Stop it. And then I'm going to get ourselves a townsperson. Who should I pick today? I think I know who I will pick. Dun, dun, dun. I am the terror that flaps in the night. And now we have the fun trying to make him stand still. I don't want him to be on a team. And he gets to go live on top of that block. I'll put him right there. I'm also going to drop down a camera. I'll put the target camera right about here. And enter AI any. Activate the camera. Set it up so that the target is the triggering actor. And the most important part is that when that AI enters this trigger area, I need to send an input to this logic gate so that our logic loop can start up and capture that target's or that townsperson's triggering actor information and constantly pump it out to these 4 circuits to control the movement of the character. Alright, so the last thing I should have to do right here is say, also if that button is pressed, I'm going to want to clear that. That will get rid of the block, and Darkwing should drop down. Now, important thing if you're building one of these to know is if the replayed object is too far away from your actual figure, which is why I put them fairly close right now, sometimes the block will clear, but the townsperson will just stand up there because apparently physics only does anything if your character is anywhere near them. So the townsperson will hover in the air if your actual figure is too far away, which is why I put the start area fairly close to my remote controller. So we're going to give this thing a test in a second here. But before we test it, let us actually new actor connection, hook this up to good old Darkwing here, and set it up to make it look like Darkwing's talking by saying connected actor. Alright, let's give this a go and see what happens. Pushing the button. Now our camera has switched over to Darkwing. We know our character's in the box. So I'm going to move up and nothing happened. I'm going to move down, nothing happened. So something is not happy right now. Get rid of the camera and let's see if we can't figure out what it is. Aha. That would be why. I need it to be output to input, not input block to input. Output to input, that's good. First one, output to input. Okay. Oh. Let's see if that block will be nice and come back first. Okay, let's try this once more. And here we are. We are in the box. Darkwing is floating down. And I'm going to move. And Darkwing moves up. And I stop. I move left. Darkwing goes left. I'm moving right. There goes Darkwing right. Down. Darkwing's going down. Going diagonal down. Oh, don't want to go off the edge. Diagonal up. Diagonal the other way. Now, the reason it's looking choppy like this when you go diagonal is because the weather vane strength. You can play around with that to see if you can't get the optimal performance out of it. A different figure, like a stronger figure, that diagonal strength would look better, but he actually returns to the middle a little slower because he's getting farther into the trigger area. So your character actually seems to respond a little more sluggish. So it's all up to your own preference on how you want the gameplay to go by adjusting the weather vanes that are pushing against your player. Here I'm going to fire off the diffusionator, and Darkwing was supposed to say something, I believe. Oh, there we go. Wave complete. Wave complete. And I'm going to jump, and he's going to say congratulations. So that is how you hook this all up. I know in my original video I showed a jump circuit, and that jump circuit is actually quite complicated, and if anyone really wants it, I could probably do a video on the jump circuit as well. But this is how to build the box and how to hook up all the logic to move the townsperson around with it. So again, this is Sumerian, and I hope this has been useful to you.